Chapter 22, Chapter 20, The Battle of High Fort. Chapter 20, The Battle of High Fort.
Hey, you're actually not bad with that,
Cat said, sounding surprised, as Patty's whip strangled the last of the life from a predatory Rabola. Both hers and Spar's were wrapped around its neck.
What, you're surprised?
Patty scoffed, as they pulled their whips back and stepped around the carcass.
Thought I was some helpless little lamb. More or less, yeah. She's joking,
Bao explained before a fight could start.
We just figured you were a robber, not a fighter, you know. Well, it's not like I like it or anything,
Patty admitted, following the rest of the group down the back hall. They were creeping along, as Sten had before. They were going through abandoned areas of the fortress whenever possible, on the theory that killing monsters was better than soldiers, even if they were loyal to Shippuden.
But I'm not stupid, either. A girl on the go by herself needs to be able to take care of something if it comes up, you know. Heh.
Cat smirked.
Can't argue with that, I guess. That's a first. Where are we going, anyways?
Rand asked loudly, cutting that one off as well.
Up to the throne room, or what? It'd be crawling with loyalists, and they're probably not there, anyways.
Sten grimaced, feeling around at a wall and opening up a secret passageway.
Shippuden talked a big show, but she's not stupid. She knows that now that we're here, she's on a time limit to gain total control of this place before we barge in and ruin her plans. She'll be taking the princess to the control area for the lost technology. I'd bet my knives on it. We're almost there, then,
Patty said thoughtfully.
It's 2 floors up from here in this tower, right? Yeah, through this passageway.
Sten glanced up the stairs that had been revealed, then back at her, frowning slightly.
How'd you know that? Like I told the rest of your team, I did come here to pull a heist, you know,
she pointed out.
A good thief always learns the layout of the location before going in. And don't go feeling some weird sort of residual anger over me pulling that on your old home, okay? We're on the same side this time, after all. I think he meant, how did you manage to learn the layout of High Fort at all?
Nina pointed out curiously.
That's not the sort of thing one finds on the open market in Prima. I've got my sources,
Patty replied cryptically.
And I'm just guessing here, but I'm pretty sure they'd prefer I didn't go blabbing about them. Guess we can all understand that,
Ryu conceded, idly testing the edge of his sword.
If the control room's up there, that's where it'll come down to a fight. Everybody ready?
The others all nodded, and he turned to Sten.
Let's do this. Right.
The Highlander led them up 2 sets of stairs into a half-room, divided abruptly by a massive steel double door that filled it from top to bottom and side to side, without a wall to be set in. It looked to be as thick as one would expect from that, and the edges were covered in runic-looking etchings. In the center where the doors met, an ugly, round gargoyle head was attached, sealing them together. More important than the doors was the blonde-furred Highlander who was lying on the floor before them, face down, scorched and battered.
Shit. Turbo. This is that Turbo guy.
Bao asked as Sten ran over and crouched over him.
But isn't he your enemy now, or something? Sort of, I guess,
Sten muttered, turning him over and slapping him lightly across the face.
But sort of not. It's complicated, oi.
He made a face as Turbo suddenly grabbed his wrist.
Oh, you are still conscious. Could have said so sooner. Shut up,
Turbo grunted, his voice badly accented, as he rose to a sitting position.
About time you got here. Took a few naps, did you?
He glanced around at the others.
So you're the backup, hey? Guess I should thank you for taking this reprobate off the streets. Best thing for everybody. Not this time, man.
Sten glanced up at the door.
This is new. I take it that's what did this to you? What's the deal with it? Some kind of powerful force field,
Turbo explained irritably.
And an automated defense system. It's all tied into that head there. Eats magic, too. That sounds moderately unpleasant,
Jean murmured.
No kidding.
Bao narrowed his eyes at the door.
Yeah, I can see it. Magic and lost technology all wound up together. That's a nasty piece of work. I can't see anything at all,
Ryu admitted, and Cat and Patty both nodded as well.
Looks just like an ordinary door to me. I'm able to detect a slight visual discrepancy, but only slight,
Spar said quietly, prompting mutters of agreement from Sten, Jean, and Rand.
A sort of shimmer, like heat distortion. Me and Bao can sense the magic in it,
Nina explained.
Trust us, that force field is there. And it's connected to the rest of it. If we can bring that barrier down, the whole thing will probably short out.
She smiled ruefully, shaking her head.
Of course, by we, I mean, you. Tabo's right, it will simply absorb any magical attacks, which makes me perfectly useless. Sorry, it looks like I'll have to sit this one out. It's still a better proposition than actually breaking the door itself would be, so I'm cool with that.
Patty cracked her whip.
This wouldn't have been good for much against all that solid steel, you know. Alright, let's get to that.
Turbo started to stand up again, then flinched, sinking down on his hands and knees.
Duh. Easy, pal.
Bao healed him, glancing at Sten.
That thing did a number on you. Just hold on, okay?
Sten nodded.
We've got this. And if we don't, somebody's gonna have to figure out a backup plan, so take 5. And let you act like a big shot again.
Turbo scoffed, trying again to stand up and succeeding now that he had been healed.
Not a chance, Sten. Look, Turbo.
Sten sighed, then suddenly clocked him right in the side of the head, the hilt of one dagger clenched in his fist. Turbo hit the wall and went down like a sack of potatoes, and Sten turned to the door, shaking his head.
Take a nap. Come on, guys. That won't keep him down for long. Let's get this piece of crap out of the way before he gets back up. You have weird friends, man.
Kat cracked her knuckles as they walked up to the door.
So, what, do we just start laying into it? State password,
the head rumbled, dark eyes suddenly springing to life with purple, glowing lights.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Its eyes turned yellow, and began making an ominous humming.
Time is up. Assessing threat before initiating attack. Remember, no magic,
Bao warned them all, raising his crossbow and firing it. The bolt lodged in thin air a few inches away from the door, and hairline cracks appeared around it.
That includes your trump card, buddy. Saving that for Shapukai, anyways.
Ryu shrugged, hacking at the invisible barrier with his sword as the others moved in as well. He couldn't see the force field itself, but every slash made dents and fractures appear in the air, so he continued to hack away.
Threat determined,
the head grumbled.
Initiating attack program C.
A pair of blades formed from air closed around Ryu's chest, slicing into the steel plate mail he was wearing and drawing a good amount of blood as well.
Shit,
he growled, swaying slightly but staying on his feet.
There goes that armor. I liked that armor. You nearly get chopped in half and you're complaining about your armor,
Ran said dryly, pausing from laying into the force field with his heavy iron knuckle guards in order to heal him.
You've been hanging out with Bao too much, Yao.
He grimaced as another pair of air blades nearly took his arm off. Fortunately, it seemed the big man's muscle and bone were simply too thick for the spell to cut through.
Okay, that hurt. You've had worse,
Kat pointed out, ripping into the field with her bronze battle staff. Due to the unusual shape of her weapon of choice, she had been unable to find one of a better metal than that so far. The staff had 3 tiny, razor-sharp blades on each end, guaranteed to do hideous damage to soft parts of organic enemies. Seeing the air blades come for her, she ducked and rolled under them before rising to continue the assault.
We've all had worse. Nice try, asshole. And we're likely to get worse, later today,
Bao pointed out, reloading his crossbow and firing again, then pausing to heal Jean as the spell turned on him next, slicing into his plate mail as it had Ryu's.
You okay, man? A scratch, mon ami.
Jean brushed it off, slashing and jabbing at the invisible barrier with the ancient rapier that was his people's national treasure.
Nothing more, I assure you. We shall destroy this foul automation soon enough, yes. Just as long as it doesn't pull anything worse out of its hat,
Patty pointed out, lashing with her whip again. Her end spars were both carving dents into it.
Threat assessment incorrect,
the head growled.
Initiating attack program B. Way to go.
Kat rolled her eyes as the head spewed flames over the entire group.
No, seriously, you are, Yerg.
They all went down, swearing, and rolled around on the ground as Bao, Rand and somewhat surprisingly Spar began healing them, one by one.
Shut up.
Patty snapped back.
Keep on it.
Ryu yelled, getting back to his feet. Perhaps because of his heritage, he had always been able to shrug off fire a little easier than normal people, even though it still hurt just as much and caused as much damage.
The sooner we take it down, the less it'll be able to do to us. What he said.
Sten agreed, slashing and hacking with his heaviest silver knives in his hands. This was a job for brutal damage, not stealth.
Nina, how close are we? It looks like it's about to break.
The black mage called from where she was crouching next to Turbo.
Just a little longer. Good.
Rand growled, turning back to the attack as the two white mages and Spar finished healing Patty and Spar.
We don't want another, damn it.
Another wave of flame washed over them, and three of them concentrated fully on undoing the damage once again.
Come on, come on.
Ryu growled.
Yes.
The force field had suddenly become visible, a shimmering green wall of light that was crumbling and shattering before their eyes. As it fell apart into glowing dust, the head's eyes began flickering wildly.
Threat assessment incorrect,
it groaned.
Initiating. Attack. System. Failure. Get down.
Sten yelled, and they all hit the deck as the entire wall exploded outward, showering them with rubble.
Everybody okay?
Ryu muttered once the smoke had cleared, shaking his head groggily. He had taken several hits to his back and arms, but had covered his head.
Girls? Spar. They're fine,
Rand grunted, standing up. He had thrown himself over Cat, Patty, and Spar, his heavy shell durable enough that he had only been slightly battered.
Come on, Bao, let's get them all back on their feet. You going to be okay for Shappu-kai?
Sten asked, wincing as white magic covered him.
You both used up a lot of your magic stores, there. Got it covered.
Bao tossed a wise fruit to Rand, and took one for himself, both of them wincing as they downed the poisonous berries.
Ow. Alright, there we go. Hate having to do that, but no real choice when it's a demon lord. Hopefully we won't need many more. Spar, you need one. That will be unnecessary,
the grass man assured him.
The two of you did the majority of the healing. My contributions were far less. I still have an adequate amount of magical power remaining for the real fight. You don't call that a real fight?
Patty remarked dryly, dusting herself off.
Your guys' standards are a little off. That was just the warm-up,
Sten explained, peering through where the door had been.
The big one's still up ahead. Shit.
There was another strange, glowing screen like the one they had seen in Semaphore up ahead, with the board of letters and numbers below it. This one was round and larger, though, and set in some more complicated mechanical device that covered the entire back wall. There was nobody there, however, only a staircase leading up.
She isn't here, and neither's the princess. Must be up ahead. This is the control room, though, right?
Ryu frowned.
So if she ain't here, where else would she be? Up top,
Turbo groaned, and they all turned to stare at him as Nina helped him back to his feet.
There was a bunch of stuff up there we used to just ignore because nobody had any idea how it worked. Shappu-kai's been spending a lot of time in here recently, though. She's probably figured some of it out. That, or she already possessed the necessary knowledge,
Nina murmured.
Hey.
Turbo blinked.
Long story,
Sten grunted.
We gotta get up there, but...
He glanced at the controls.
We had better have a backup plan, just in case. Turbo, stay here. Sten.
The other Highlander started to yell, then paused as his old friend held up a hand.
If we're not back in half an hour, wreck the controls, Sten explained. That might mess up a lot of other things in High Fort, but at least then Shappu-kai won't be able to do whatever she's planning, even if we lose. You think you might lose?
Turbo blinked, as did Patty.
Against Shappu-kai, by herself, with all of you. Long story,
Ryu said flatly.
Let's just say we think she might have some real nasty tricks up her sleeve. Of course, we've got a couple ourselves, but it's best to be on the safe side. What the boss said.
Sten looked at him for a moment, then glanced at Patty.
Somebody should stay behind to help him out. You mind? I don't need any help,
Turbo snarled, then buckled, leaning against the wall.
Just give me a moment to catch my breath. You're exhausted,
Nina told him frankly.
White magic can't help that. Sten's right. Yeah, okay,
Patty agreed.
Guess if somebody's gotta do it, I'm the best choice. You would better give her a couple for me, though.
She smirked at Turbo.
Besides, this guy's kind of cute. I don't mind hanging out with him for a while. Sorry, kid, but you're too young for me,
Turbo snarked.
Try again in another 5 years. Alright, I can take a hint. Go on, get your asses up there. Half an hour from now, if you're not back, the controls are going down, and whatever collateral damage comes up because of it ain't on my head.
It looked as if that was all he was going to say, until they were near the stairs, and he spoke up again.
Hey. Sten. Yeah.
The Highlander asked, caution in his voice.
Win this. Count on it. What he said,
Patty agreed, watching them with something indecipherable in her eyes.
You guys are a pain in the ass, but don't go dying on me. Not gonna happen,
Ryu promised, leading them up the stairs.
Dying young's overrated, anyways.
They proceeded up the stairs, 2 by 2, quiet and grim. The time for sarcasm and wisecracks had passed, as it had on occasion before, even with this crew. The enemy was waiting for them, and the only task that remained was to take care of the problem, once and for all. Even Jean and Spar felt the group mood, and brought up the rear on the left side without a word, weapons held at the ready in one hand with their other ready to cast a spell. The rest were all in similar states of readiness as they climbed staircase after staircase, until they finally emerged at the top.
Relax, princess,
Shapukai was saying quietly as they entered the room. Her back was to them as she stood before a massive machine built into the wall, with innumerable pipes and tubes spreading out from behind and below it like tentacles. The center of it was a spherical pod that apparently had a seat inside. It was closing up at the moment, until only a small window remained open near the top, showing the face of a young, pretty Highlander girl.
There is nothing you can do about this now, so there is no point in straining yourself unnecessarily. Save your energy. You will need it shortly. What is this, General Shapukai?
The girl demanded, trying to sound brave and not entirely succeeding.
Explain yourself, immediately. It's really very simple, Your Highness,
Shapukai murmured, standing back. She still had her back to them, and nobody was making a sound.
As I told you, you will be the keystone to the success of this country. This machine takes all that is intangible in the sentient heart, mind, and soul, and converts it into pure energy. Your vibrant emotions. Your strength of will. Your hereditary gifts of magical talent. Your devotion to this country. All of these will become the power that fuels our ascension, and returns this castle to its true glory. Be honored.
Elforon's eyes closed for a moment, before opening again, flat with resolve.
General Shapukai of Highland, I am your princess. As the ruler of this country and clan, I hereby order you to kill me, here and now. I would rather die than to be used like this. Disobey, and you will be guilty of high treason.
Fat. Shapukai spat on the floor.
Call it whatever you wish, little girl. I command this country and clan now, not you, and I will do what is necessary for progress, whatever you may think. Your pathetic morals are useless. To you, to me, to all of Highland, and to the entire world. Still, I am not totally without pity for you. I will make sure that you are named a martyr by the Church of Saint Eva, as part of the price for arranging our country's conversion. Yet another necessary step to secure the power of our clan. You would turn us against our own religion, even.
Elforon whispered.
Is there no low to which you will not stoop? None.
Shapukai stepped up and stared into her eyes, and the princess shrank back inside the device.
Nothing is more sacred than conquest, Princess Elforon. Nothing is more holy than victory. Nothing else is necessary. Damn you.
Elforon sobbed, finally starting to cry.
Damn you to hell, Shapukai. Haven't you figured out yet?
Shapukai scoffed.
I am already damned.
Without a word, Sten threw a knife straight into the general's back, and she went down with a wordless cry of pain.
Sten.
Elforon's eyes widened.
Now, princess,
Sten said quietly, as they all stepped forward.
That's not very ladylike, is it? And after the general was being so honest with you for once in her rotten life, too. She really is damned. More than any of us ever knew. Until now. Such kind words, Sten,
Shapukai murmured, reaching behind her with her long arms and pulling the knife out of her spine with only a slight grunt of discomfort. Standing back up, she turned around to face him, flipping his knife back to him.
Careful, or else I'll start thinking you still care. Took your sweet time getting back up here, didn't you? You almost had me worried.
She smirked.
Still, here you are, just as I knew you would be, so no harm done. Aren't you going to introduce me to your new friends? If you insist.
Sten inclined his head towards Ryu.
General, Princess, these are the freelance mercenaries, the Dragon Kin, who've accepted me into their ranks. And by the way, Shapukai, they are, in fact, the ones who killed Kawatara. Something you might want to keep in mind. Who's Kawatara?
Elforon asked, confused.
I would like to know as well,
Spar added.
A colleague of mine, you could say,
Shapukai murmured, blood-red eyes contorting in contrast with the rest of her face, calm and cold.
A brute, really, though he could feign a polished edge when necessary. It never really hid the real him, though. Still, I must admit we did have a few common interests.
She smirked.
I'm sorry, Sten. I've been unfaithful to you. Can you ever forgive me? Actually, I kind of feel sorry for Kawatara now,
Sten snarked.
If you're the best he could do, he must not have known how to work that faux Simon charm at all. Mon ami.
Jean blinked.
Are you saying that you and our enemy? It means nothing,
Sten told him flatly.
It was a matter of convenience at the time. Nothing more. Agreed.
Shapukai shook her head.
Poor, cynical Sten. You actually thought you had outwitted me that way, didn't you? I didn't know what you really were back then,
Sten admitted.
Now, of course, I know all too well. Hardly.
Shapukai's smile was cold and hard.
You would not be repeating the exact same mistake I just warned you of, were that true? You think you know me, Sten Legacy? I am Shapukai, Demon Lord of Conquest, and I have watched the men of your world fight and bleed and die for more years than all of those in which you have all drawn breath combined, even including the grass man. I knew you would escape from the cell and come for me. This chamber was always meant to be the stage for our final act. I had it cleaned up years ago, just for the occasion. So, you think you can take us?
Ryu raised an eyebrow, trying to look more confident than he actually felt.
Pretty ballsy, since it's 8-on-1. Oh, and since I'm pretty sure even if you did win, Baru bury it, skin you, fry it and make you eat it for ruining whatever the hell he's planning for us. Kind of a no-win situation for you, isn't it? On the contrary, Mr. Battison,
Shapukai purred, finally dropping the Highland accent, just as Kawatara had lost his when he had finally revealed his true nature.
You are necessary for our final success. The rest of your team, however, are incidental. I will have to make sure I only maim you, but the others, I can kill them without a care. And when I butcher the man she loves in front of our dear, sweet princess's eyes, her loss and despair will become a phenomenal amount of energy that will restore this fortress of obelisk to the skies. Not a bad plan,
Bao grudgingly conceded.
It's got one big, gaping hole in it, though. Kind of surprised you didn't see it. Oh.
Shapukai's eyes glinted.
Is that so, Mr. Dogi? By all means, tell me what it is that I missed. It all hinges on you living through the hour, that's what.
Cat cracked her knuckles.
Which is looking more and more unlikely the more you jabber. Ha.
Shapukai threw her head back and laughed, sardonic scorn mixed with what almost sounded like actual approval, as her fur fell out in a sudden rush and her skin turned a leathery blood red.
Ha 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 ha. Shapukai 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 shapukai. Good, good. There's no point in conflict without absolute confidence in your own triumph. Oh, I'm going to enjoy this. Pay attention, now, your highness. And watch the man you love die before your eyes. Watch Sten Legacy's final, pathetic fate, and scream your hatred to our god. Here she comes.
Ryu yelled, as Shapukai shrank in on herself, her shape and form and features twisting and withering.
Let's go, people.
The demon lord's true form was long and thin, like a snake or worm. Below the caved-in, withered chest, it became nothing more than a 20-foot tail that quickly coiled up below her in a heap, allowing her torso to rise above it. Her entire body was emaciated to the point of being skeletal, but her arms were as long as those of a Highlander, ending in 2 fistfuls of curved, wicked claws. Tattered, wing-like webs of flesh hung from wrist to torso, and in each palm, a sphere of glowing blue magical energy hovered. Though her torso was female, there was nothing attractive about her nudity. The visibility of her entire rib cage and the leathery red skin made her exposed breasts grotesque. Her jaw was low-slung and pointed, reaching almost to her stomach, and her mouth was like a scarecrow's, a jagged gash in her flesh with strips of skin resembling fangs. 2 horns rose from her skull, bent at right angles, then did so again to continue upward towards points. Her eyes were 2 slanted holes in the surface of her face, with smaller, glowing blue sparks like the ones she held in her hands deep within.
That's your ex.
Bao muttered under his breath as she rose above them, easily 12 feet tall even coiled up.
Everybody does stupid things when they're young,
Sten replied dryly.
About time I got to try this out,
Ryu said firmly, ignoring that, as he ran forward.
Let's see you shrug this one off, Demon Lord. As you wish.
Shippuden leered as he began to transform, the magical sphere in her left palm glowing green. It seemed to draw his eyes, he couldn't look away from it, as it pulled at him in a sense that was entirely non-physical.
But first, I'll be taking a little something from you.
There was a sudden, sharp, tearing sensation, and he stumbled, suddenly feeling slightly less energetic, more exhausted, as a spark of blue light emerged from his chest and flew into the sphere, merging with it.
Ah! Thank you for your contribution.
Ryu didn't bother responding verbally, regaining his footing, he willed himself to transform. Wings sprouted from his back, as did a tail, and arms, and leg and neck all stretched out as his body expanded. Glittering, deep red scales covered him, and he soared across the room towards Shippuden as a mighty fire drake, fully as massive as she was. Roaring his wrath, he belched a massive fireball that engulfed her entirely, drenching her in flames, then landed before her and turned back, immediately falling on one knee. The sudden spike of exhaustion was even worse than it had been the first time he had turned into a whelp, it was everything he could do not to just pass out on the spot.
All right.
Cat whooped.
Kick ass. Get her.
Bao yelled, raising his crossbow and firing at the mass of flames.
While she's still down. Oh, am I down?
Shippuden hissed, rearing up and raising her hands above her head, a nightmare of shadows and light seemingly formed of the flames themselves even as they ravaged her body.
A point of information you may not have been aware of, young fools. The breath of fire is only at its full strength if the dragon clansman is still at their maximum magical capacity. If even a fraction has already been used, or better yet, stolen, the power of the transformation is significantly receded.
She raised her right hand, the sphere in it turning white.
You rely on your leader far too much, children. Let's just see how well you do without him.
Shit, Ryu muttered as the sphere flared, and a grey fog taking the shapes of screaming skulls washed over him.
Ryu.
Kat and Nina screamed in unison, as his consciousness faded into the darkness, and he fell to the floor. As he had when Kawadara had knocked him out, however, it didn't last long before he suddenly felt white magic pouring over him, bringing him back.
Come on, man, get up.
Bao was yelling as Ryu shot back to consciousness.
We don't have time for this shit. Since when did you learn Renew?
Ryu asked, then winced, clutching his head.
Better question. What the hell did she do to me? Death spell,
Bao grunted, aiming and firing with his crossbow.
Should just be glad it's not literal. Damn. She deflected it. Get back on your feet, buddy, we need.
He fell silent, eyes widening, as a seal of magical light appeared in the air before him.
Now, how are we supposed to get anywhere with you healing everybody all the time?
Shippuden sneered, the magical sphere in her left hand glowing violet. She was no longer covered in flames, her torso swaying back and forth oddly while she fought some of the team. Even as she cast the spell, that same hand was slashing out at Kat, fending off the swipes of her staff. The other was held at the ready as her eyes swept across the others. Jean and Sten were stabbing at her coils, with little effect, while Nina and Spar hung back behind Rand.
But then, black magic is just as problematic, isn't it? I think not,
Spar said calmly, raising a hand as the other sphere turned purple as well, and drawing a flicker of blue light out from it, as Ryu ran forward.
You are not the only one who knows the drain spell, Demonis, or that casting it disrupts another spell if it is in progress. Unfortunately, it is only a delay. Nina, you may wish to use as much of your magic as you can before she silences you. Indeed,
Nina agreed, hands moving and summoning a storm of lightning, massive bolts slamming down out of the air like spears into Shippuden.
Ah, that tingles.
Shippuden howled, writhing in pain but still mocking, as a crossbow bolt slammed into her chest, and was ignored.
Well then. I was trying not to squander my magic, but if you want to play like a big girl.
The sphere in her right hand turned white instead of violet, and Nina's eyes widened before she fell to the floor, the grey mist rising from the floor around her.
Bitch,
Ryu growled, reaching Shippuden at last and slashing at her coils with all of his strength, only for his blade to be deflected by her hand, striking with unnatural strength her spindly body shouldn't have had. Lightning fast, she hit him again, slashing his face open and smacking him to the floor, even as she did the same to Kat with her other claw.
I'll take that as a compliment,
Shippuden said smugly, then blinked as a magical seal similar to the one she had created appeared in the air before her, only to shatter like glass.
Oh, that's rich. You thought to silence me, Little creeper prince.
Staring down at Jean, she laughed mockingly.
I'd return the favor, but your magical talent isn't even worth the bother.
Sten didn't say a word as he leaped up behind her, knives flashing, and plunged them into the back of her skull. Shapukai arched back, hissing in pain, and he locked his legs around her neck, pulling the blades back out and repeating in different places. Before he could do so a third time, however, she reached back around her head and grabbed him by his back, then threw him straight into Ryu as he raised his blades again.
Do you still think you stand a chance?
Shapukai asked mockingly, slapping Kat out of the air a second time as she leaped up again, rolling. The fiery warrior stumbled back to her feet and ran back forward, ignoring her own bruised and battered state. Almost absently, she plucked another crossbow bolt out of the air, reached down and stabbed Jean through the shoulder with it, prompting a cry of pain from the prince as he fell back.
This is like swatting flies. We gotta figure something out,
Sten muttered, pulling himself off Ryu.
Nothing that should be fatal is working. Her physiology probably isn't even totally physical. She's playing with us.
Yeah, Ryu agreed, then blinked as he felt something tapping on his shoulder. Turning, he saw that it was the end of Spar's whip, moving as prehensily as Kat's tail. The grass man was beckoning silently from where it was standing behind Rand, who was casting a spell to revive Nina. Shrugging, he and Sten both ran over.
This is not going well,
Spar told them gravely.
The Demoness is an excellent tactician, and she has analyzed our respective strengths and weaknesses. She is, as the term goes, softening us up. I believe that she will soon mute Rand as well, before moving on to her actual offensive. Unless we find a way to interrupt that, one she will not expect, our chances of survival are minimal. Man's got a point,
Rand grunted.
Alright, Nina's coming around. Damn. I wish I could do more, but punching something like that wouldn't really do much. On the contrary,
Spar continued.
Our best chance for success would be to defy Shipukei's tactical analysis by altering our usual combat roles, such as changing yours to physical offense. Hey.
Rand looked up, tiny ears twitching.
I can't have heard that right. It might be onto something,
Nina murmured weakly, sitting up.
I'll grant that you might not be able to dance like a butterfly, but once you get moving, there's not much that can stop you. And our enemy has one major disadvantage. She's not exactly mobile.
She glanced over at Shapukai, who was still fending off the attacks of the other four.
Plotting something over there.
She called mockingly, smacking Kat so hard the Warren girl bounced off of a wall, then casually backhanding Jean off of her coils as he attempted to run up them and reach her upper body. Both were clearly on their last legs, but still they stumbled back onto them once they'd landed. There were 3 crossbow bolts protruding from Shipukei's ribs now, but she didn't seem to care as she continued swaying like a dancing snake, both magical spheres turning purple.
Perhaps I'd better quiet you down, just in case. No point in taking chances, after all. Damn.
Nina hissed, casting one final spell before the seals covered her and Rand. A flaming pyramid engulfed the demon lord, but judging from her hissing laughter, it still wasn't doing much. Spar's right, Ryu thought quickly. We need to change this up. If Rand can close with her, he'll be able to do some damage. That's the key. Doing what she won't expect, all of us. With those 3 silenced, Spar and Sten will be our best spellcasters. If there's one thing Jean knows how to do, it's take a hit, same with Bao. She won't expect Kat to be able to fight barehanded, or Nina to be able to fight at all. Well, she can't, but Shapukai doesn't. Know that for sure. That just leaves me. So I'll do what she is expecting.
Rand. Got any wise fruit?
The big man couldn't speak, but he nodded slightly, handing him a few berries.
All right. Here's. This has been fun, but it's time we wrapped it up.
Shapukai interrupted, eyes flashing as she raised her hands high, both spheres turning golden. From the heavens, a double blast of lighting descended, one spell taking the same form as the lances Nina had brought down upon her earlier, the other a whip of electricity that danced between the first. Both tore through the entire group, and they all screamed in pain, hitting the floor.
Spar,
Ryu grunted, forcing 2 berries into his mouth.
Heal me. Now. You.
Spar glanced at him, then widened his eyes, quickly casting the healing spell.
What are you doing? That would have killed you in your current state. Needed the magic.
Ryu stood back up, despite the nausea and pain the fruit inflicted on him as it refilled his magic, keeping his voice low.
I'm going to make an opening. Tell the others the plan while I do, and heal Cat while you're at it, she's down to guts and grit. Spartan Sten open it up, then Rand goes in. Nina, take Jean's rapier, distract her, Jean and Bao, keep those claws off them. Once Rand has her, Cat joins in, and then I'll finish it off. We're only gonna get one shot at this. Let's go. Not quite dead.
Shapukai noted as the others began to stir as well.
Well then, another dose should take care of that.
She blinked, then sighed as Ryu ran forward, the spheres turning to green.
Some fools never learn, I see.
Ryu just growled, transforming anyways, even as his magic was drained, and soared through the room towards her. This time, he became a drake of lightning, and a blast of electricity leaped from his fangs to smash Shipukei's torso back, flat against the ground. As he released his anger, he saw Spartan Sten dashing around to speak to the others, and smiled inside, dropping to the floor and reverting to his humanoid form. Again the exhaustion hit him, and again he forced himself to his feet on sheer will.
Are we quite done with this chicanery, then?
Shapukai sneered, rising back up.
I do have what the hell?
She yelled, surprised, as the air detonated before her face, slamming her head back. Immediately afterwards, rock-like shots of ice magic followed it, battering her skull with pinpoint accuracy. Spartan Sten stood at opposite sides of the room, hands before them, as they murmured the words of magic. Neither spell actually hurt her much, but they served to distract and disorient, and that was what they needed. Rand ran forward then, but only for a few steps, before tucking and rolling, the round shell on his back, transforming him into a sphere that picked up speed as it crossed the room. Shapukai hissed and reared back, but before she could cast a spell, Jean and Bao were there, rushing her from opposite sides. The Demon Lord reacted on instinct without even noticing that the prince was no longer armed, lashing out at them with her claws, and though both were scored heavily across the chest, they managed to grab her wrists, holding the arms down for a brief but successful moment. Throwing them off, Shapukai stared in horror as Rand approached, and raised her hands, only to pause again, staring up. Nina was above her, descending with Jean's rapier held inexpertly in her hands, towards the Demon Lord's head. She had no chance of actually wielding it effectively enough to do any damage, but it caught Shipukei's attention for that last instant, and Rand hit her head on, crushing her under his massive body like a rampaging bull. When he reached her torso, the huge farmlander uncurled suddenly, breaking himself on her body as she screeched in pain and outrage. Reaching around her, he tightened his tree trunk arms around her spindly waist, whirled, and slammed her to the floor with enough force to shatter the metal plating. Dazed, Shipukei's eyes rolled, and Kat and Ryu moved in for the kill as Spartan Sten nailed her head again, just to be sure.
Grab her horns!
Ryu yelled.
Hold her head!
Without looking to see if she'd listen, he drew his sword. He knew, with more than logic, that she would. His faith was true. Discarding her staff, the Warren girl seized the Demon Lord's horns with a grip like steel, putting the full force of the breath of spirit into holding her still. Ryu did the same, gripping his sword in both hands and bringing it down in an overhead chop, putting his entire body into it with every ounce of strength he could coax from his exhausted muscles. Straight at Shipukei's neck. The blade sliced through. Her neck parted. Her head flew. And the Demon Lord Shipukei's body exploded in flames as dark as night.
Ridiculous!
Her head shrieked, even as it too burst into flame, and her dying body lurched upward, throwing Rand and Kat off.
I am Shapukai. How did you? But no, it matters not. If I die, then so be it. But I will accomplish my mission regardless. Stop her!
Sten yelled.
She's going for Elforon.
There was no stopping Shapukai, though. Before anybody could reach her, her headless body had streaked across the room, launching itself in a blind charge like a striking snake. It bounced off of the mechanical pod containing Elforon, but still managed to reach up and pull it open. Elforon screamed as one burning claw pulled her from the machine and threw her to the floor, but harming her was not the Demon Lord's goal. Pulling itself up, the flaming corpse stuffed itself into the capsule, and the machine lit up with an eerie blue light.
All of my anger and hatred will become the energy needed to reactivate this fortress.
Shipukei's flaming head howled triumphantly.
I may have fallen, but still will I return obelisk to the skies. And when the hordes of infinity swarm out to engulf this world in nothingness, this flying fortress will crush the world underfoot once more. Oh, no you don't.
Sten growled, running forward, only to slam up against a wall of golden light that rose from the floor before the capsule.
Shit. Some kind of barrier. As Kawadara told you, this is our technology that you have ignored all these centuries,
Shapukai purred.
I apologize for ruining the totality of your victory, Sten. Although I must confess, I'm a little surprised, and perhaps disappointed. I had expected you to insist on taking my life with your own hands. Heh.
Sten backed up and glared at her through the barrier, as the others all stood around it as well, even ARan. It seemed she hadn't been hurt much.
Kind of like how I thought you would try and talk me out of killing you, on account of what we were, once. Except I didn't. Because we weren't. It was nothing, Shapukai. It is nothing. We understand that, you and me. The only difference between us is that I changed. I'm not who I was back then, anymore. You didn't. Indeed we do,
Shapukai murmured, as the room began to shake, as if an earthquake were taking place.
Yes, yet wait, what? What the hell is this? What do you mean, what the hell is this?
Ryu yelled.
It's not you? Then what? Wait. Spar, how long has it been since we left Turbo? Exactly 31 minutes and 12 seconds, now,
Spar replied clinically.
Turbo.
Shapukai's head demanded.
No. He's messing with the control chamber, isn't he?
She began to laugh raucously.
You absolute idiots. You've sealed your own fates. He's reversed the energy flow. This tower will be blown sky high. Let's get out of here, people.
Sten shouted, and they all whirled, bolting for the stairs.
No, not that way. We won't have time. The other stairs, the ones leading up to the roof. But,
Cat started to object.
Do what he says.
Ryu yelled.
Can you run, Your Highness? Yes,
ARan told him. Her heavy pink dress was torn enough by what she had been through that she was able to keep up with the mob as they crowded up the stairs.
Run, run.
Shapukai taunted, voice fading as the diabolical willpower that had fueled her last stand finally died along with her body.
Even if you escape today, God's time is at hand. Alright, now what?
Bao demanded as they poured onto the roof of the highest tower in Higfort. There were several others about 10 feet away and below nearby.
Jump it.
Sten explained.
It's our only chance. Are you freaking kidding me?
Rand yelled.
I'll use air magic to help you out.
Nina promised.
We have to go. Come on.
Cat agreed, running and leaping, clearing the jump without trouble. Sten and ARan were next, and with a muttered curse, Ryu followed them, barely making it. Turning around, he watched Spar come up short, and for a moment his blood ran cold before he saw the grassman's whip snaking out for Cat to grab and haul him up by. Rand, Bao, and Jean all crashed into the roof a moment later, propelled by Nina's air magic as she had promised, and the Wing clanswoman flew over behind them. Before anybody could say anything, what looked like the third floor of the tower they had been detonated with a blast of sound that was beyond noise, and everything that had been above it slammed over and off, falling down into the ocean below.
That, mon amis, was way too close,
Jean told them all gravely, shaking slightly.
Monsieur Sten was entirely correct. We aren't out of the woods yet.
Sten growled.
It really has set off some kind of quake or something, and the shock protection systems will be malfunctioning. We need to get down.
There was another staircase on this roof as well, leading downward. The mob poured into it, and he stopped in front of a strange device that looked like a huge box inside a doorway, large enough for them all to fit in, even Rand.
Here we go. An elevator. Knew there was one up here in this tower. I must confess perplexity as to this mechanism's function,
Spar murmured, looking at it skeptically.
Does that mean, what the hell does it do?
Cat asked, frowning.
Because if it does, I'm right there with you. It'll carry everybody down to the bottom safely,
Sten explained.
Go on, get in. Wait.
ARan pointed at a wheel crank on the side of the door that the elevator was set in.
That won't work. Somebody has to turn that in order to make the elevator descend. What?
Ryu shook his head sharply.
Oh, no. Nobody's staying behind. Wrong, boss.
Sten crossed his arms.
We'll never get everybody down those narrow stairs in time, but one fast guy might be able to make it. And I used to live here, remember? I know all the shortcuts. I need you to trust me on this, boss. It's the way with the best chance of all of us getting out alive.
He closed his eyes.
Please. I could do it,
Nina offered.
I'd be able to glide down while dodging falling debris.
Sten shook his head.
Sorry, Nina. Not likely. Shit.
Ryu thought it over quickly.
Shit. Alright, everybody in. But,
Bao started to object.
Go.
Ryu roared, so furiously that everybody except ARandomAudiobookAppeared rushed into the elevator without saying anything. Turning to Sten, he glared at him.
You and me are going to have a long talk once we're out of here, Sten, don't you dare die on us. Dying young's overrated anyways,
Sten said wearily, saluting him with a smile.
See you at the bottom, boss. Your Highness, you need to go with these men. But Sten.
ARandomAudiobookAppeared protested mildly, then trailed off as he stepped close to her.
I'm sorry,
he told her quietly.
But there's no time. You have to go now. If you die because of me.
She closed her eyes.
I understand. Then. Until we meet again.
Darting forward, she kissed him once, quick and soft, before joining the others inside the elevator. Sten closed the doors to the box without a word. Nobody else said anything either. By the time they reached the bottom, the shaking had ceased. Ryu opened the doors, and everybody stared out into another mass of guards holding dozens of crossbows aimed at them, before exchanging a cynical glance.
I hate this place,
Bao muttered.
Surrender immediately, miscreants.
Their apparent leader snarled.
Release the princess, or else. That is quite enough.
ARandomAudiobookAppeared stepped forward, eyes hardening.
Stand down, Major. These men and women are heroes.
Now it was the soldiers' turn to give each other looks.
Your Highness.
The Major coughed.
Perhaps you should leave this matter to bootlicking scum who've been riding Shippukei's ass for their entire careers.
Tabo's voice rang through the room, and everybody turned their heads to see him leaning against a pillar, idly twirling a pair of nunchaku.
Not happening. If you don't feel like obeying your princess, maybe a superior officer will do the trick.
He stood up, and his voice and face lost all trace of sarcasm.
Do it. Now. That's an order, all of you. Hey, Colonel.
Ryu waved, walking over, as the soldiers lowered their crossbows.
Good job. Where's the girl? Ran off on our way down.
Turbo shook his head.
Said she had some business to attend to. Wasn't she one of yours? Her.
Bao scoffed.
Not likely. She was just tagging along for the ride. She'll probably be okay, though. She's a survivor. Yeah.
Ryu nodded. For some reason, he felt like telling them what Patty was probably up to wouldn't be the right thing to do.
A survivor. Just like somebody else we know.
All of a sudden, his legs buckled, as the bone-deep exhaustion from the dragon transformations finally caught up with him. Pitching forward, he was dimly aware of shouting voices as the darkness overwhelmed him. Power. We need more of your power. God needs more of your power. Give your heart to God. Pray to God. Praise God. Sacrifice your heart and soul to God. You will become God's power. When he woke up again, it was the next morning. He was in a lavish guest chamber, one of many that had been given to the entire group. Apparently, ARandomAudiobookAppeared and Turbo had laid down the law after he had passed out. The others were waiting for him. Over breakfast, they caught him up on what had happened while he was sleeping. Everybody in High Fort had been ordered to treat them as honored guests, it seemed, and they'd enjoyed the high life over the evening while the princess and the colonel had been busy cleaning up all of the fallout over what had happened. Unsurprisingly, there had turned out to be a lot of it. Sten, unfortunately, hadn't come down from the tower, and nobody had seen him or Patty, for that matter since. However, they hadn't found a body in the ruins of the towers either, unlike Shippukei's charred skeleton, so ARandomAudiobookAppeared hadn't lost hope. Privately, everybody in the group seemed to be sharing a certain theory on their missing member's absence, but nobody was actually going to say it out loud, for obvious reasons. The Demon Lord's remains, on the other hand, had caused a great deal of noise, especially when Turbo and ARandomAudiobookAppeared had explained them. The entire military hierarchy of Highland, unsurprisingly, seemed to be in turmoil. Because of that, it wasn't until evening that the two of them were able to meet with the group, over a private dinner. As they ate, they explained everything that wasn't team-only knowledge to the Highlanders, as they had to the Simon royal family after slaying Kawadara. In light of Shippukei's transformation, there wasn't much that they found hard to believe, and when Turbo did react with some skepticism, ARandomAudiobookAppeared assured him that from what she had seen, it was all plausible.
To be honest, we didn't really plan on getting involved,
Ryu confessed once they were done.
We just wanted to borrow that flute. All in all, though, I think things turned out well. I'm certainly not going to complain about another demon lord being down ahead. Neither will we.
Turbo cracked a grin.
I gotta admit, I was pretty skeptical about the kinds of folks who would let Sten join up, but you guys are all right. It looks like High Fort owes you all quite a debt of gratitude. Nobody's been able to find him, even now.
Elforon looked downcast for a moment.
I can't help but worry. Remember who we're talking about here, Your Highness,
Turbo said quietly, unable to look at her face.
Sten survived the Battle of Gunheim. He'll have made it. I'm sure of it. Yes.
Elforon glanced over, compassion written on her face, and all of a sudden Ryu understood much more about the complicated past of her, Turbo, Sten and Shakukai than he had before.
Thank you, Colonel.
Looking back at Ryu, she smiled.
And thank you, all of you. Even if you didn't intend it originally upon coming here, you saved us all.
She thought about it for a moment.
I think, all things considered, it would be best if we altered that story a bit, though. What did you have in mind?
Bao asked, looking interested.
Well, let's see here.
Elforon's smile turned sly.
Hypothetically speaking, if I had contacted your group and hired you in order to remove a certain element of corruption that was about to attempt a coup against the throne and the military hierarchy, would you have accepted the job? Hypothetically.
Ryu smiled back.
That sounds like the kind of thing that'd be right up our alley. I thought it might be.
She nodded.
Of course, there were some complications when the target learned of this, but in the end, the job was successfully completed. I trust that 10,000 zeni is an adequate payment? And, of course, you may borrow the famous flute as well. Yeah,
Ryu said after a moment.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Thanks. That's 1,000 zeni each.
Bao was whispering to Kat.
Each. You're kidding.
She hissed back.
That much? Holy shit. Maybe we should start killing demon lords more often. No,
Nina murmured.
But... No. Ahem.
Ryu coughed.
Thank you very much, Your Highness. Colonel. If we find anything else related to this matter that High Fort should know about, we'll send a message. I would appreciate that.
Elforon's smile faded.
In addition, I have one more request.
She took a deep breath before continuing.
If that smooth-talking young Highlander rejoins you, tell him to take care of himself. And that someday.
She trailed off, closing her eyes.
Never mind. Just take care of him. Sten can take care of himself,
Ryu assured her.
But we'll watch his back. Just like he watches ours. Good,
Turbo grunted, leaning back and closing his eyes as well.
Very well.
Elforon opened hers again, smiling sadly once more.
Then may Laden guide your path.
Nobody said anything to that, though Ryu was fairly confident that every single one of them had a different reason. The next morning, Turbo met them at their rooms with the flute, and escorted them back to the front gate. Due to the nature of the story that was now circulating, they were politely but firmly informed that it would be best if they discreetly left, which they agreed with. Turbo seemed to be in a pensive mood, despite their victory, speaking only when spoken to for most of the walk, and even then only minimally.
You know, I don't even mind any of this myself,
he said finally, when they were near the gate.
I'm a soldier, you know? Them's the breaks. But seeing Elforon like this, it's really getting to me. Don't get me wrong, she's finally taking charge of this place, and I'm glad to see that. But when she thinks nobody's looking, it's been a bad couple of years for her, I reckon,
Bao guessed sympathetically.
Listen, it might not be our place to ask, but you know, her and Sten. Oh, it's no big secret.
Turbo chuckled bitterly.
She's been in love with him since we were all teenagers, and he felt the same way. Except he knew better than she did. It never would have worked. For all his talent, Sten just wasn't born high enough to marry into the royal family, so he started keeping his distance, no matter how much it hurt them both.
He shook his head.
Sometimes I think that's part of why he took up with Shakukai. So Elforon would stop trying. That's fairly cold,
Nina said quietly.
Sten used to be fairly cold,
Turbo replied.
More than fairly, really. He's changed, I'll give him that much. Maybe even for the better.
Nodding to Corporal Gain, who quickly saluted, he watched the gates grind open before continuing.
You guys are good for him. Like Elforon said, keep an eye on him, will you? Awful kind of you to look out for my well-being, Colonel.
A familiar voice chimed in, and they all turned to stare at Sten as he walked up from the stairs into the guard station below.
Hey, guys. Sorry about bailing on you, but I needed to lie low until you were on your way out. Been hiding out down here. Elforon.
Rand guessed, voice somber.
Yeah.
Sten nodded.
Hey, Turbo. Hey, Sten.
Turbo glanced at Gain, who averted his eyes, and shook his head.
Let's go take a walk. Yeah, okay,
Sten agreed.
Give me a few, guys. Sure,
Ryu said, watching them walk out across the bridge. Only once they were out of earshot did he speak again, quietly.
Hate to say this, but somebody should probably keep an eye on them to make sure that it doesn't get out of hand again.
They'd all heard about what had happened the last time the two old friends had met for the first time in years when they went over the entire situation with Turbo and Elforon.
I'll do it,
Kat volunteered as they all walked across the bridge.
I'm probably the best of us at not being spotted except for him.
Once they were on the other side, she slipped behind a boulder, as the others all leaned against it, trying to look casual.
It is strange, mon amis,
Jean murmured after a few minutes.
We have won the day, as we always do. A country is saved, a princess rescued, a demon lord slain, and our pay received. Even better, one of our comrades has been reunited with those he was closest to. What more could we ask for, yes? And yet, something feels strange here. It is as if we did not win after all. Sometimes, it's not as easy as that.
Ryu shook his head.
That's just the way life is. Well, aren't we depressing today?
Another familiar voice asked from above them, and they all looked up to see Patty on top of the boulder, waving. Jumping off, she landed before them and turned to smirk.
You pulled it off, right? That should be good enough. You are extremely illogical,
Spar informed her gravely.
You grow used to it once you know her,
Nina explained, shaking her head.
Sometimes I wish I could be as carefree as you, Miss Smith. Not for very long, though. Well, I got what I came for,
Patty bragged, tossing her ponytail.
So I guess I should thank you for that much.
Her eyes narrowed then, and her carefree manner dropped instantly.
And the demon. Chunky style,
Ryu told her.
You never did explain just what your stake in all this was, you know. And I'm not going to,
Patty shot back.
I appreciate the help, but that's between me and the folks I'm meeting up with.
She scowled, glancing up at the sun.
If they ever get here. We were supposed to get together yesterday. Did they get arrested this time, or what? I heard that, babe.
A man's voice called up from a mountain trail a moment before he came into view. He was a tall, muscular Warren clansman, with shaggy golden fur and handsome, though obviously feline, features. Like Kat did when she wasn't expecting violence, he was scantily clad, in his case wearing only a blue vest. Fortunately, his fur was shaggy enough to maintain decency. Seeing them, his golden eyes widened.
Hey, wait a second. Marks? What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing, Lee.
Rand smiled, as did Ryu.
Hanging out with this pain in the ass these days? Man, are you going to regret that? Gee, thanks.
Patty rolled her eyes.
Why am I not surprised that you know each other? Not even slightly. Acquaintance of yours, buddy.
Bao guessed.
You could say that.
Tiga bumped fists with Ryu and Rand both.
Met in a shady cafe over in Sima. Turned out we were both in the same line of business.
He cocked an eyebrow.
See that you had a few more guys than just you two in Legacy. You gonna introduce me? Of course.
Rand chuckled.
Guys, this is Tiga Lee. He heads up the Renegades, out of the Isle of Guns. These are Baodogi, our number 2 guy, Nina Winfrey, Jean, and Spar. There's Kat Chan, too, but she's out on a walk at the moment. So's Sten. Jean, hey.
Tiga's eyes glinted, and Ryu had the feeling he suspected the prince's true identity.
Same Jean, I heard a story about involving a paddle boat, a nesting swan and a guitar. Mon Dieu,
Jean muttered, putting a hand to his forehead.
I beg you, mon ami, do not spread that around. No worries, man.
Tiga chuckled.
Wouldn't be professional, you know.
He glanced at Nina, smile widening.
Gotta admit, I'm kind of jealous, though. If this cat's as pretty as Miss Windfree here, you guys are a lot luckier than me. I'm just up to my ass in grunts. Well, except for Clarice, but that's Clarice. I'll take that as a compliment,
Nina remarked dryly.
Clarice. His number 2,
Patty explained, leaning against the boulder with them and buffing her nails.
I'm surprised she's not here. She's usually the one who tags along with this playboy to keep him out of trouble. I was investigating the area, Miss Smith,
a voice said calmly, right next to her, and as she jumped, everybody turned to look. The woman who had joined them without being seen was red-haired and tanned, her slim blue dress baring her arms and legs. Her eyes were blue as well, cold and practical, and her face stern and serious despite her youth.
Clarice Parsha. A pleasure. Aside from a pair of Highlanders and a young woman tailing them, we're alone in the area. Yours, I take it, Mr. Battison. One of the Highlanders is our contact.
Ryu shrugged.
The other 2 are on the team, though, yeah. We're just finishing up here. I see.
Clarice nodded.
That would explain why one of the 2 appears to be Colonel Turbo Potton. It must have been an interesting job. Another high-class contract.
Tiga shook his head.
Man, your guy's luck never stops, does it? You must have some crazy sort of destiny on your side. Yeah, something like that,
Ryu muttered, as the others frowned as well.
With how much I'm paying you, you've got no reason to complain,
Patty told him, not noticing.
I got what we needed, by the way. Hey, not bad at all,
Tiga admitted.
Maybe you're better than I though. Needed these guys' help to do it, though? You're making me jealous, babe. Please.
She snorted.
We just had similar goals, that's all. I wouldn't hang around with these clowns for any longer than I had to if somebody was paying me, and I'm pretty sure the feeling's mutual. No, pretty sure about it.
Bao rolled his eyes.
Better you than us, buddy. Well then, we should be on our way,
Clarice suggested.
The sooner we join the rest of the group, the sooner we can move on to the next step. Sooner we can find some place that actually has decent bars, too,
Tiga added.
Alright, we're out of here. Catch you guys around. Later.
Ryu lazily waved, which the 3 of them returned as they set off down the mountain trail. The group continued to wait there, for several more minutes, until Kat returned.
They're coming back,
she said quietly, leaning against the boulder as well.
Just talked a lot, wasn't any fighting.
As if on cue, Sten and Turbo walked past only a few moments later, and continued going until they were on the bridge, staring down into the ocean.
Sorry to keep you all waiting,
Sten said eventually.
We needed to talk, was all. It's all right,
Ryu told him.
No. I mean, not no. We can't really understand what it's like. But we can guess. No, you can't,
Turbo agreed, without any rancor. It was a simple, flat statement.
Gundheim was.
He shuddered.
It was bad. We lost a lot of friends there,
Sten muttered, eyes distant.
Woolman. Johann. Fellner.
He shook himself, like a wet animal.
Did you bring them back? Of course I did.
Turbo gave him a look.
Like I wouldn't. Maybe I'll go see them someday,
Sten said quietly.
I should apologize to them for not having the balls to do what they did. You'll come back, then?
Turbo asked. Sten closed his eyes.
I don't know, Turbo. I really don't. I have a new place to belong, now.
The others were staying quiet. They knew that they had no part in this conversation, even if they were allowed to listen to it.
Then stay alive,
Turbo told him, putting a hand on his shoulder.
It's good that you've got people like them. And if, one day, you do decide your place is here, me and the princess will still be waiting for you. Good luck, and may Laden be with you. See you around, Sten.
He struck a salute, smiling faintly, before leaping off the bridge, down towards the water.
Show off,
Sten muttered fondly, watching him fall. After a moment, he walked back over to them, looking more like his normal self.
Hey, guys. Thanks for putting up with all of that. He grinned sheepishly, scratching the back of his head. I made you go through a lot of inconvenience, didn't I? My bad, I guess. Ex-soldiers like me, well, we're not really good at things, you know? Ha ha ha.
Before he could say another word, Kat had walked forward, and pulled him into a fierce, almost sisterly hug.
Shut up,
she whispered, as his eyes widened.
You idiot. You don't have to pretend you're okay if you're not. You're one of us,
Rand told him, putting a huge hand on one shoulder, as Bao did the same with the other.
We're here for you, man. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to,
Bao promised.
We won't ask. But we've got you. Always will, until the day we die. You guys.
Sten whispered, looking at all of their faces in turn.
Why? You know now. Who? What I used to be. Why would you? Who you were, and who you are two very different things, Mon Ami,
Jean said gravely.
I have never known General Legacy. I only know my friend, Sten, and I know that he is a good man, yes. I must concur with that assessment,
Spar agreed.
Second-hand information is, well, second-hand compared to actual interaction. You are a comrade, and you have yet to say or do anything to me that I would find offensive. Why would I not help you however I could? We all have our burdens,
Nina murmured, smiling sadly.
Perhaps none of ours are as heavy as yours, but we do know what it means to have them. We might never be able to understand, but we'll never stop trying.
Sten closed his eyes.
I don't deserve you guys. Doesn't matter if you do or not,
Ryu told him, as the massive gates of High Fort closed.
You're one of us. All we need to know. What do you say? Ready to head home? Yeah.
Sten smiled slowly, and it looked different than any he had ever shown before.
Home. Sounds good about now.
If I lead, will you follow? Will you follow if I lead?